Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
I am the Divine Prince, Emmecca, Pan-African Spiritualist, Practitioner, Author, Advisor, Elagoon, Oloye, Hoodoo, Obeya, Bokur. I reside in this beautiful and legendary, historic Treme, New Orleans, Louisiana. So join me as I share food, music, culture, tradition, the rhythms and the flavor of New Orleans voodoo. Respect the voodoo.
Audio Jungle.
Voodoo Secrets and Recipes, powered by, sponsored by, supported by NOIVD, New Orleans International Voodoo Day. Lest we forget, the spiritual medicine of voodoo brings healing and relief from the shackles of slavery that bind the master and the slave to the same chain of social division. Inspired by National Voodoo Day in Benin, and led by Black community members, New Orleans International Voodoo Day is a collective remembrance and spiritual repatriation that is preceded by a symposium and includes a procession to great monuments here in the city and sites of enslavement in New Orleans, ritual to account for and seek absolution for the city's and the country's participation in the institution of slavery, homage to those ancestors who suffered through and survived the transatlantic slave trade, and honor and appreciation for the achievements of those who came out of the oppression. 2 days for education, creative expression, elevation, cultural exchange, and above all, healing through authentic voodoo traditions handed down through generations. We offer a path to healing from the ongoing ramifications of slavery and racism in the United States. And as I coined the phrase, indeed, voodoo worldwide, we invite you, we support you, we appreciate you in terms of the demonstration of Pan African spirituality and tradition under the umbrella of voodoo worldwide. So we certainly are acknowledging and show great respect to our Benin delegation, as well as our Haitian delegation, our oncoming Brazilian delegation, and all of those in the Americas and throughout the Pan African diaspora that continue to support, participate in voodoo, ATR, Aboriginal traditional religious systems, African Aboriginal traditional religious systems, upon which have now migrated to many parts of the globe, but also have been synchronized and, in many cases, appropriated and blended into other paths and traditions. On our last podcast, we were continuing our conversation on magic and supernatural African American maroon and ultimately slave society. And we talked about flying spirits and certainly the power and the fear of spirits that could fly, but also could give the power and the ability of flight. And like witches, ghosts were another form of flying spirits that held a significant position in impacting the daily activities of Southern plantation life. In his journal, Runaway Slave by William Grimes describes ghosts as common as pig tracks. However, ghosts, unlike witches, were not a source of fear. Often called dopies, ghosts were rarely considered evil or dangerous, but were seen more as cunning and sly tricksters and portrayed as schemers who played tricks on unsuspecting humans. They were understood as spirits of the deceased who returned to haunt the living as an imposing nuisance. The stories in the piece entitled Mules and Men by Zora Neale Hurston's compilation of African American folktales feature ghosts repeatedly causing mischief, ranging from stealing another slave's umbrella to merely irritating a slave to hiding all the plantation tools, thus stalling production. And despite the fact that ghosts were mostly depicted lightheartedly, there are several references to ghosts as evildoers. Some stories discuss the ghosts of cruel masters who return from the grave to continue to torment the lives of their slaves. In his autobiography, former slave Lewis Clark recalls, I was actually as much afraid of my master when dead as I was when he was alive. Others suggested that ghosts of the dead had the ability to inflict harm, specifically by seeking revenge against those who harmed them while alive. The folk story Murderer's Swamp is about a river basin where someone was viciously murdered. It is visited at night by beings of unearthly make whose groans and death struggles were heard in the darkest recesses of the woods. Anyone who went there never came back. Likewise, stories concerning the ghost of dead slaves returning to demand justice from their white oppressors were very popular among the enslaved. Furthermore, many slave testimonies, such as Clark's, cite numerous rituals used for protection from ghosts, which shows a belief that some ghosts are indeed malicious. Tactics that were often used included burying a corpse face down to prevent its return from the grave, placing a broom at the front door to keep ghosts from entering. And I learned through some of my Igbo family, but back in the mid '80s, I was in California and I was in Pasadena College, and there were a family, a group of Nigerians there that were primarily Igbo, and they told stories of placing a broom, an enchanted broom, near the doorway or the entrance to a hut to catch and trap thieves. And so the thief would somehow be enchanted by the broom and would get caught up in the activity and the duty of sweeping and would therefore be entrapped and therefore, called out to the community or the property owners in terms of those who were, perpetuating this the thievery. And so these references to ghost proofing demonstrate the spiritual aura that slaves believe ghosts possessed, but also maintain a accurate footprint of beliefs, what we believed about magic and the supernatural before the process of the Middle Passage, and indeed in enslavement. In addition to ghosts and witches, ancestors were a powerful class of spirits included in slaves' paranormal beliefs. And until today, we pour libation. We position sacred spaces in our homes to acknowledge the ancestors and those who came before, certainly out of respect and acknowledgement of ancestral memory, ancestral inheritance, but also for protection and defense in the breaking of entanglements generational entanglements, ancestral entanglements, soul entanglements that were believed to be carried through the dead to the living when the right protocols were not acknowledged, when the right respect was not acknowledged, when we, lose our way and become disconnected from uh, the ancestors, to include the elders and the smallest of our children in the community. They would then enact some form of demonstration to get our attention. I often describe it as we're crossing the middle of the road, the crossroads of life, if you will, and your ancestors see the blessing or the curse coming. They see the truck coming, and us not hearing or acknowledging the soft, still voice of God and spirit. And they will literally, figuratively push us to the curb, which is the illusion of the issue, the block, the complication. But it speaks to the ancestors operating in a aggressive way, much like ghosts, but for the ultimate purpose of the repair, the fix, creating the balance, bringing the message, if you will. And within the diverse forms of slave culture documentation, references abound to reverend ancestors, to the reverence of ancestors, to the acknowledgement of those who came before and laid the foundation and the shoulders upon which we all now stand. Those who died long ago and those who are of more recent memory. So we pour a libation to ancestors both known and unknown. It is indeed often the unknown ancestors, again, ancestral memory survives in the blood at least 11 generations. So those unknown ancestors are often most aggressive, most active in many of our daily activities. We just often lack the knowledge or the awareness, and in some cases, the ability for clear communication. And it is believed that as custodians of custom and law, the ancestors have the power to intervene in present affairs by granting fertility and good health to their descendants. We also say they can grant wellness and prosperity to their descendants by way of ancestral memory. It was thought that if a person neglected the veneration of their ancestors, they would be at risk of sickness, misfortune, and even death. Even from a Christian standpoint, there's a particular reverence for the dead, though we often harp on, let the dead bury the dead, as a scripture. And that certainly can be a whole nother conversation. And thus, ancestors serve as watchful guardians of the customs of the people and would invoke punishment if anyone, particularly their kinsmen, deviated. And I believe that ancestral memory survives till this day. As a result of these strong convictions, a large part of slave culture was centered on the spirits of the ancestors. And people often ask, well, what is voodoo? It is primarily ancestral acknowledgement, ancestral worship, and the ability to access the archive, uh, call it um, call it Akashic records, if you will, but the archive of information that continues to exist within our ancestral memory. So, in her autobiography, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, Harriet Jacobs describes the prevalence of ancestral spirits in a slave's daily life. She writes, the living never forget that they are the trustees of the dead, for the dead are always watching to see that the living persevere what their forefathers established. And since the dead have power to bestow either blessings or adversity, the welfare of the living is felt to be bound up with the faithful performance of ancient custom. Proper adulation of one's ancestors has always been and continues to be a prominent theme espoused by Slate folklore and within Aboriginal traditional practices. Indeed, voodoo worldwide as we know it and acknowledge it today. And so the importance of proper adulations of one's ancestors continues to be a prominent theme. Many of the tales, such as the well known Brer Rabbit tales that I spoke of briefly last night, depicted an inferior animal gaining strength or wisdom through communicating with his ancestral kin. Furthermore, this arbitrary worship between man and his ancestors is evident in the emphasis slave society placed on burial rituals. Improper or incomplete funeral rites can interfere with and delay the entrance of the deceased into the spiritual world and may cause his or her soul to linger about, restless and malevolent. Before a funeral was complete, several customs were observed, including proper preparation of the body, ritual mourning after burial, strict rules pertaining to varying levels of mourning. It was expected that the graves of the deceased were to be lavishly decorated with personal effects. Thus, slave society's emphasis on burial rites, along with its oratory lessons, supports the prominence of ancestral apparitions in slaves' understanding of supernatural agency. And so I'm going to open the mics of my co-hosts, and then I'm going to answer my door. Uh, Greetings and salutations to every single one of you who is present with me, both individually and collectively. Nina Lloyd, thank you so much for coming on in. Daniel Neal, Ray Alexander, Britt Brett Dash, thank you so much, you all, for being present. As I now open the mics for Elder Reggie, Green Soap, come on in, beloved. Sister Toni Val Martinez, thank you so much for coming in with all that's on your plate. And Joshua Nylan Tanner, please know that I am approaching the door as we speak. Greetings, you all. Come on in.
Yes. Good night, everyone. Divine, that was an excellent program tonight. I liked every part of it. Sister Toni, welcome back. Brother
Thank you.
Josh, good to see you as usual. We're here.
Now, I've heard of, hello, everyone. Glad you could join us. I know that ghosts haunt places, but what about a ghost haunting a particular person? I don't think God know of an instance where a ghost say that no matter where a person went, they were followed by this one particular ghost. But by me living in New Orleans and always living in older shotgun houses, I think it's no house that I've lived in this city that has not had ghosts in it, and including in Memphis. And not just ghosts that only I could see, ghosts that everyone living in the house saw at some time or another. And we basically just ignored them and went on about our daily activities. When I lived in Memphis, my youngest daughter, who she could see dead people. My youngest daughter is amazing of the ability she have. But we moved into this big house in Memphis, and when we first moved in, my daughter said that there was a fire in the back of the house, and the landlord said, "No, it never was a fire here. Um, According to the house records, there never was a fire." And I asked her, and she said the old grandma told me. We would hear the footsteps. You know how elderly people drag their feet on the floor when they have slippers on? We would hear her walking through the house at night. And we assumed that she was on fire watch since my daughter said she the one who told her about the fire. Well, a couple of years passed and they had to go up in the attic, the high attic, up under the roof. And my landlord reported, when y'all first moved here, you said there had been a fire at the back of the house. And I told you no. Well, guess what they found up there? Burnt timbers. The house had a fire in the back.
Okay.
And I think, and we described to her the ghost of the older lady that my daughter called the grandmother. And she said that sounded just like the last tenant that lived there, an elderly lady who died in the house. So, I mean, I do believe in ghosts. People call them haints, ghosts, whatever they want to call them, duppies. In the Caribbean, they call them duppies. Bob Marley made a song called Duppy Conqueror. And he talked about, in his autobiography, duppies a lot. Seeing them, communicating with them. So that was a great story. Some great information that the Divine Prince had gave regarding ghosts, because I think more people, even people that's not considering themselves spiritualists, practitioners, but they've had incidents and contacts with ghosts more than anything else. Hey Joshua, how are you?
Hey, Sister Toni and Elder Reggie, how y'all doing? Yeah, I agree with you, Sister Toni. I think that, beyond what we see, what we feel, through our DNA, through our connection, spiritual connection that's deeper than our physical comprehension, we can definitely, your daughter's definitely, she got some talent, skills.
Yes, she does.
Yeah.
It scares her. It scares her, and she does not want to expunge on them too much or make them enhance them much like I did. Also, I didn't want to enhance mine. Also, kind of scared of it. But she better than me. She better than me. I mean,
She just respected those spirits, respecting the ancestors.
Yeah, she respect them and everything. She have an altar and everything, but she would wish she didn't see the things she saw a lot, and she don't try to focus her attentions on anything to find out
Maybe
what's
coming
going
to it
on.
for a reason.
Yeah, my mom used to say it's more things unseen than seen in this world.
Yeah,
So
that's true. That is true. I think that we were talking about that last night too, just about I didn't get the chance to really listen into what Ty was speaking of to the last couple of minutes, but I definitely got, I guess, the gist of it. And yeah, it's along the same topic we were talking last night, just in terms of supernatural and the elements that we are getting to tap into by doing our work or our innate gifts that come with us when we're born here. And it's something that you can't really turn off.
no, you can't.
Can I yeah, I like that. Can I add my 2 cents?
Yes, of course. I just was about to ask you about your 2 cents.
Well, all right. Coming back from some of my Christian background teachings, we all know of the light. When you die, you go through this tunnel, you head toward the light, which is going to bring you back into the other dimension, the realm of the ancestors. Some people call it heaven, whatever, or hell, whatever point you go to. But the problem is, when some humans depend on the way you leave this earth, meaning the way you die, some humans get trapped still in this third dimension as earth body spirits. And this is what you may call a ghost. But now, there's a certain debt you have, you're into the tunnel, you're going to the light, and you're not a trapped spirit in this dimension. A lot of suicide victims, a lot of car wrecks, bad trauma deaths that happen to people unexpectedly. Let's say you're driving a car and an 18-wheeler smack you from the side, you didn't see it come. Your soul jump out of your body, your spirit jumps out, that spirit becomes trapped in this dimension. It still think it's alive. And so a lot of times what we call spirit possession of people, and you have to do an exorcism or spiritual work to get it out of people, those are ghost huntings. That's my 2 cents.
Well, that was some good 2 cents. That was more like 5 cents. But I've heard also that people who died with unfinished business
Mm-hmm.
refuse to go into the light. Some spirits
Mm-hmm.
don't want to go into the light. They want to stay anchored because they have some unfinished business. And there are lots of records, actual records from police departments where people have helped them solve crimes. And the only explanation that they could give the police was that the ghost of the person who was the victim directed them to the one who did that to them.
Hello. Yep. I
That's
was
the only explanation they could give on why they knew things. And most of them often became suspects because they knew so much information.
That's right. Now, I was doing spiritual work for a client, and she said, I want to show you something. So she brings out her cell phone and her door recorder, like at your doorbell on the house,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
kept recording her husband ringing the doorbell. He couldn't come in the house, but he was outside ringing the doorbell. He had died 6 years earlier in a car crash. He was coming home alone. His car slipped off the road, hit a tree, and he died. And every night he would try to come back home. And she showed me his actual silhouette from the door cam recorder. Then she showed me an actual picture of him, and it's identical. So yes, so this thing called ghost is real.
Yes. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, I don't believe in ghosts." And then when they see one, they just can't stop talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't believe. They didn't believe. And another, when you spoke on ghost possession, another thing that's being documented a lot now, I'm noticing children talking about living another life and knowing everything about that other life.
Mm-hmm.
Children coming back saying they fought in the Civil War, gave the name and what their name was, what their rank was, where they fought at. And these accounts can actually be documented by military records.
Mm. Yeah. As we speak of
Some
hoodoo and voodoo, right quick, brother Josh. Sorry to cut you off. Reincarnation is part of the life cycle. It's just that somewhere in Christianity in the West, they try to cut that particular piece off. But from hoodoo, voodoo, reincarnation is a part of the process.
indeed it is.
Mm-hmm.
That goes into what we face here within the West in terms of restrictions and limitations and denominations and different aspects of spirituality that was given to us that was watered down. I would say that it didn't include the things that we from our ancestral and DNA pull from as a people. And it's not just, I'm talking about all people. Everybody has ancestors. Everybody has their own bloodline and cultural lineage. So
Yes.
And
they don't
one
want
of
us to tap into that because that's power. It's power in that.
And one of the problems we have is so many Black people don't know their heritage or lineage
Yeah.
because of the slave trade.
Right.
True.
Right. True.
Not just because of that. They also, I think that we can do a better job of doing our own due diligence and as family units. and contributing information and giving and passing along that heritage that to the younger generation, giving them the tools that they need or they didn't have, that they may have required through their lifetime. I know some of my ancestors did that, and they're gone from here now, but I have it, and that's something that lives on with me. But I know within our communities, a lot of times we don't share those things, or it's just all the trauma that we've been through, processing all that trauma to get to that information. It takes some work, but it's worth it. I really believe it is.
Yes, it is. And we are out of time, and I would like to turn it over to Elder Reggie to close us out with information on the International Voodoo Day.
Yes, thanks, Sister Toni. Thanks, Divine, for hosting a powerful show tonight. Very, very informative. Thanks, Josh, for your information you brought forward. And I give thanks to the collective in the chat room. I read your texts. Some of you guys are coming in with some nice information. Continue to bring it forward. But as we move toward International Voodoo Day of 2026, we invite everyone who can come out that day, come to New Orleans, come hang out and see what all we about as the New Orleans International Voodoo Day continue to build and move forward. With that, I say ashe, ashe, ashe. Thanks, and good night, everyone.
Good night. Ashe, have a nice evening. Thank you all for
AYIBOBO.
coming.
All is
Ashe.
blessing.